Hey, it's Second Soundwave, and I am finally back with a somewhat overdue look at the Master Grade Blitz Gundam from Gundam Seed. I built this guy about a week ago, over the course of the entire week, due to lots of things coming up and getting in the way of building it. I didn't even finish it till last Sunday, but I finally got it all built up and ready, and I've had some time to play around with it, and I've sort of composed my thoughts on it, and, well, that means it's time for a review. So, let's get on with this. Taking a quick look at the box art, you can see that the artwork here is absolutely fantastic. There's explosions everywhere. It just looks all mean and menacing and ominous. You'll notice that the box is a little crushed up in the corner. Unfortunately, that was a result of the shipping method this was shipped by. Well, less the shipping method, more the shipper, and the fact that they packed in a box that was exactly the same size as the kit, which was kind of a stupid thing to do. But the kit itself arrived fine, the runners were all okay, so it's not a huge deal. It just kind of muffs up the otherwise fantastic box art. I should mention that, as far as I can tell, this is one of the only Master Grade boxes I've seen that doesn't have like other mobile suits lurking in the background. Like with the Red Frame of Strays box over here, there's a blue frame up there, there's that thing that I couldn't identify. With most Master Grade boxes, there's like sort of, not really cross-sells, but like little cameos by other mobile suits. This doesn't have this, it's just the Blitz Gundam. Not complaining though, because it is some awesome box art. But box art probably isn't the reason you looked at this review, so let's get on with the figure. Now, looking at this mobile suit, it just oozes just darkness and villainy, I guess is the word, and just looks just ominous and ninja-like, and just everything like dark, and it almost looks like a Cosmic Era equivalent of the Death Scythe, and that's really awesome. Painting down the body, you can see there's lots of sharp angles, but also lots of curves. They like sort of meet together in sharp angles. There's a ton of detail. I was surprised with all the little details. All those like red parts and gray parts are all separate pieces, and there's just so much going on with this mobile suit. I just love it. Coming in for a close look at the head, you can see there's some great detailing going on here. The gem in the head is actually translucent red, and it goes all the way through to the back of the head, which means that if you hold this guy up to a window, his gem will actually glow, and it's a pretty awesome effect. Unfortunately, the eyepiece is clear, which is kind of a shame, because there was already so much clear red on the sprue that they could have just thrown the eyes in there, and it would have been awesome, because you could have just painted in the black around the edges and had glowing red eyes. Sure, it wouldn't have been anime accurate, but it would have been an awesome touch either way. Bit of a shame, but oh well. Now, moving down to the chest is where my first problem comes in with this figure, and that is this piece right here. I had to super glue this little panel right here down to the figure because it would not stay on. It was just way too small a slot for the, way too small a peg for the slot. It just wouldn't stay in. These red parts do a good job of staying in though, so not too bad. There's a cockpit down here. It's got a double hinge, so it hinges there. Then it hinges down, and then it's on like a double jointed thing, so it comes up and then down again. And if you look way up in there, you can kind of see the little figure in there. But not really. It's kind of tough to tell, which is a shame because it's a cool cockpit design. It's just so hard to see the figure up there. I'm honestly not sure it's showing up at all. So yeah, bit of a shame. But if we do take a moment to look at the standing figure, you can see that there is actually some great detail sculpted in, and if you had very tiny fingers and steady hands and like a one bristle paintbrush, you could probably paint this guy up and have him look pretty cool. I do not recall this character's name. I never actually watched the original Seed series, so can't say much about that. But what is kind of interesting is you actually get not only this standing version, but a like sitting version of him, which I'm guessing is from like the intro or something. So you have like two little figurines of this guy, so pretty cool. It's a nice little touch they added two of them, but you know what? Let's get back to the Blitz. Focusing on the arms here for a second, we can see the second function of this kit, and that is the Mirage colloids. When you pull this out, you can tip it down, tip this up, and if you look down in there, there's like this mechanical detailing. I'm probably going to paint that like gold or silver or something like that at some point to help make it pop, probably gold. But it's a cool little mechanical touch in there. It almost makes it a sort of, what is that called, like an open hatch or something where people like customize like a Master Grade to have like all the panels open. Because this kind of does that out of the box. That's kind of a neat function. But yeah, I mean, there's shoulder. The arm's got some good detailing on it. I had some trouble getting some of the panels to stay together, but once I kind of figured it out, it seemed like it's okay. I mean, there's still a little, like up there you can see, there's a bit of a gap along that groove where you can see where the frame is, and that's a shame. Hands are the standard seed and wing kit hands, which means that they have removable fingers. I'll get to that later, but it's not necessarily a good thing. The waist armor for this guy looks pretty cool. It comes out a fair bit, but as you can see, it is a little floppy. I'm not bothered by a loose waist armor though, because it kind of tends to drape around the figure's legs anyway, so there's not much else it would do. Back skirt's pretty plain. I mean, there's a couple gray vents you could detail in, but for the most part, what's going on here is the front skirts. The problem with the front skirts is those black pieces up there. What you just saw is a very common occurrence. And after a few minutes of frantic searching, I did manage to find that piece and put it back on. It's kind of a stupid idea, actually, to do that on screen because it did fly pretty far and it took me a while to look for it, but these should be glued down. There's a hinge right behind them, so you have to be very careful when you're gluing them, but definitely glue these down. Another thing to glue down is this purple piece in the backpack. It looks like it should move, but in reality all it does is just wiggle off the peg. And the problem is that the piece it's on does actually wiggle, and that makes things just confusing and just generally puzzling. That could be glued on fairly easily, I just haven't gotten around to it yet. There is like a bar underneath there, and I'm not sure if something's supposed to clip to that. It kind of looks suspicious. But as you can see, there's some great detailing back here. All these red and black parts are individual pieces. It gives a great effect. It's way better than lining the kit. And these thruster sections do actually wiggle around a bit. They can kind of go up and down and all around. Not a lot of movement in any one direction, but just enough to kind of give the impression of flight. And these gray parts down here do also tend to pop off on rare occasion. But for the most part, they hold on better than some of the other stuff. Moving down to the legs, we got some cool detailing here. We got the standard thighs that I believe are the same on all the versions of this kit. Kneecap's pretty cool. There's little red pieces there I'm worried about, but they haven't fallen out yet, so far so good. Some neat purple around here. Some great armor. The ankle flaps are great. There's one in the front that admittedly doesn't go very far, but fortunately it doesn't affect articulation too much. There's these little side like vent things, I guess they are, I'm not really sure. And what's cool is the spikes on the back of the foot actually pop in and out, so that's cool. And my camera's convinced that that's a face, but it isn't, trust me. I know. So now you got a good look at the kit, let's move on to articulation. The head goes down, it goes up, it's got a sort of double joint there. Unfortunately the bottom joint's just a hinge, so it can only go forward and back, but the top is a ball joint, so it can get a good range of movement. It can spin all the way around with a little bit of work to get it all the way around. The chin catches slightly, but overall it can be done. Shoulders can tip up on their own. The actual shoulder joint swings up, and this is a good time to mention, remember my problem with the Astray where the arms and legs would constantly drop out of the polycaps? The polycaps on this kit have a flange that fits into a little groove on the peg, so these arms are in solidly. I can do pretty much anything I want to this kit, and those arms are not coming out, and that is a great improvement. Big problem the Astray mold had, and I'm glad to see they fixed it. This can hinge up to here, then the shoulder inside the torso is another joint that lets it come up farther, so basically overall that's about the highest you're going to get on the shoulder. Swivel, great double jointedness there. It's only slightly restricted by the armor. Ball joint on the wrist, pretty standard fare. The torso is very remarkably articulated. We got a good amount of forward, a little bit of backwards, and plenty of side to side, so this guy can pull off some crazy torso stuff. Now just a precaution, I removed those top parts there before I did the leg articulation just because I didn't want a repeat of last time, but legs go forward pretty, oh okay, hang on, they go up to here right now, but the thighs, well okay, they also go up to here. If you look in there, there's a little drop down mechanism, and you can actually swing the thigh down, and once you've swung it down, it can go much farther up. And that's a really cool feature. You do have to be careful. that you remember to reset it so you don't end up with something like this where this leg's lower and it'll look funky. Or I suppose if you just want to get him a little extra height, you could drop that down. But it is just something to keep in mind. Backwards, this skirt moves out of the way ever so slightly, but thanks to that great drop-down hip mechanism, you can get a full 90 backwards, which is not something many kits can do. And there goes that other piece that I said needed to be glued on. Now, that does make this thing look like a floppy mess that's falling apart, but in reality, it's only a few easily gluable parts that are loose on this, and for the most part, it's a very solid kit. He does have a swivel, I think. Is there a swivel? Yeah, there's a swivel. It swivels out about 90-ish, which is about as much as you really need. Knee. The top part of the knee has a neat sort of hinging mechanism where that gray part hides the hole. And then down here, it's got a whole double hinge that can be brought down. He has a full 90 down there, and that just looks awesome. I'm not a fan of how the kneecap looks when you have it half extended. It kind of looks disjointed. I mean, it looks okay from like here down and went straight, but when you have it partially out and the knee's just out there, it looks a little odd. That's why for smaller knee bends, I prefer to use the higher joint. Those flaps on the side do a great job of getting out of the way for the foot, so it can do all sorts of stuff. It can swivel, it can go down, and then the toe can bend down slightly. You have to be careful that doesn't pop off though. And then forwards, you can tilt this up, and the toe goes crazy amounts upwards. There's just so much articulation there in the feet. This guy can do basically whatever you want. So the bottom line is that basically you can get this kid into any pose you want it to. And you'll notice his hands open there. I'll get to that in just a second. But you can see I basically just tried to use as many joints as I could to pull off this pose. It's pretty cool. It's a very articulated kit. It's very fun to do this kind of thing with. There are things that pop off, but they pop right on and they can be very easily glued since none of them are really moving parts. So overall, articulation of this kit is pretty awesome. So now let's move on to the accessories. We're going to start with the basic simple stuff, which is the hands. You've seen the fists throughout this video, but you'll notice that I switched one of them out for an open palm hand in the last part. You get one of those for each side, and they're just separate finger parts you swap off. You get weapon, like gun holding hands. You get beam saber / sword holding hands. And you get, well, the fist, like I said. You also get a little stand adapter they plug into the bottom so you can stick it into an action base. Not bad, pretty basic. Swapping the hands out is pretty easy. You just pop this piece out and take the other part and just kind of stick it in there. And it's a little hard to get lined up sometimes, but there you go. I'm not sure what I think of it, especially on the other hand that has the shield. It seems to be a little bit of a hindrance, but for the most part it's an interesting feature. I do think I prefer the fully swappable hands of high grades though. And speaking of the shield, it's about time we talked about said shield. This piece is pretty awesome. There's a surprising amount of detail in it. It's got a nice white stripe here. This is all plastic. Turned around, it's got these 3 spears hidden underneath, as well as a beam saber and a little laser thing. The handle does come off, so you can attach it to the figure easier. You sort of stick this in the hand and then plug the shield on. It also attaches here to the arm. This hinges forward. I'm not sure how that helps, since that seems to defy the laws of physics. These pieces can be quite easily knocked out of place, but they do actually, when you push them in, they sort of dent into their proper splayed formation. They can be fully removed and used as like handheld weapons. That's what that groove there is for, is you stick it into the holding hand. Unfortunately, they're a little hard to remove just one. I find when I'm trying to pull one out, I end up knocking them all loose, and they're a bit of a mess. Now, you do have a beam saber right here. You get a pair of blades, so you can stick one of these in there and have it like as a melee weapon. Pretty neat. You can pull the whole handle out, like so. And again, there's a groove so he can hold it in his hand. Pretty cool. A lot of functionality for just a simple shield. A lot more than I was expecting. I think it's a very cool function though, and well, it's pretty neat. And on the other arm, the Blitz has this grappling hook weapon. It's pretty cool. It's a little basic little claw. You can open it up, and it's got decent articulation in that manner. The front comes off. You do get a sort of bendy wire with pieces on the end that you're supposed to like stick this in here and then that in there. And it's supposed to be like a postable grappling hook. However, there's no stand attachment on this, and it's way too heavy to be held by the wire, so it just ends up falling over and knocking the figure off balance, and it's generally not really that useful. I prefer to keep it in its attached claw mode, which does look pretty cool. So the shield mounted and ready, the Blitz Gundam does look pretty cool. Again, like I thought, those spears do tend to be knocked loose, but it's got a good look to it. You'll notice the hand isn't really tabbed in anywhere. It kind of just rests there. That took me a while to figure out. And you'll notice his thumb's also in a very uncomfortable looking position, but I just kind of threw his hand in the general direction of the shield, and it really doesn't matter since the weight's held by the arm peg. So yeah, it's actually pretty neat there. But sometimes a beam saber is the tool for the job, and the Blitz can pull that off. You'll also notice I can very comfortably pull off a kneeling stance thanks to those swing down hips. Great mechanism. This is one of the many times it's come in handy. Even with the beam saber separate, the Blitz Gundam managed to look pretty darn cool. Now, I did notice a bit of a problem with this in that this particular design of the spears, because once again, as I was posing him, they did kind of start to succumb to the force of gravity. I mean, I was able to push him back in there and the kind of holding, but it's not a very good connection. Although it is a very awesome pose. I've never actually removed the beam saber from the kit up until this point, and I have to say, it's actually a better looking thing than I expected. But that's only half the Blitz's arsenal, as the other half is this awesome claw weapon. Now, the connector for this is a little loose. You can see it kind of wiggles around on there. It holds on fine, but if you tip the figure upside down, it does succumb to gravity. I really wanted to do a cool pose with the wire, but there's just not a chance in hell that thing's staying together. It's just, this connector doesn't hold on well, that connector holds on only slightly better, that connector doesn't hold on well. It's a nice thought, but it's just not really executed well at all. Fortunately, it does manage to succeed. It's just a general awesome melee weapon, so the cord gimmick really isn't that necessary. But if you prefer your Blitz to fight like a good old-fashioned caveman, you can, like I said, take the spears out and put them in hand. They do fit better than I thought. I thought since they were so small there'd be a big gap around the hand and it would look weird, but actually no. They managed to fit pretty well. And just for fun, I tried to see if I could get the Blitz into a spear throwing stance. The answer is kind of, because the only hole for attaching the thing to his hand is so far down on the stock of the weapon that it kind of looks awkward. He can sort of pull it off, not quite as well as I hoped. And in the process of getting him into that pose, I had a lot of trouble getting this out, but when I took it out, these two just fell right off onto the ground. So, again, probably like the fourth time mention this, these do not stay in well, unless you don't want them to. Overall, the Blitz manages to be a pretty decent kit. I mean, sure there's some flaws like the spears falling out and the general just not functioning of the grappling hook gimmick, and there are a couple parts that need to be glued, but for the most part it's a really solid master grade. You can get it for around 40 bucks. I got it for like 36, but that's because I got it from a place that clearance fairly significantly down. Although, as you saw, their packing was not the best, so I'm not sure I'd necessarily recommend them, but there are other places on Amazon, mostly, even directly from Amazon, like from Amazon in the US, it's only like a $42 kit. Most places sell it for like $38, $40. It's definitely a good kit for that price. Good starter master grade since it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't seem like it has a lot of weapons, but what it has just does so much that it makes up for it. Overall, I think it was very good. I mean, articulation's great. It's an awesome looking mobile suit. It's got some good accessories, even though they're not, like I said, particularly plentiful. And as a neat little bonus, you actually get 2 of the beam sabers, so you get an extra one to throw in your parts bag and do whatever with. Now, it does use the seed/wing hands, and yeah, they're not the best, but it's kind of a mileage may vary thing, because I haven't had too much trouble with them. The only time I had problems was when I was trying to attach the shield, and then I finally realized that it really doesn't matter if they're actually connected since they aren't holding any of the weight. Overall, other than the few parts that I mentioned that you need to glue and a couple loose pieces, I'd say that it's a pretty awesome kit. I mean, it's definitely gotten me interested in the rest of the Seed Remaster kits, and I think I might actually pick a couple more of them up. So yeah, this is Second Soundwave, wrapping up my review of the Blitz Gundam Master Grade. If you liked this, be sure to actually leave a like, maybe comment if you have something to say about it, and don't forget to subscribe.